Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived on Wednesday in the capital of the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi. Presidential spokesperson Ambassador Bassam Radi said that President Sisi's visit to the UAE comes as part of the close and long-standing ties and cooperation binding Egypt and the United Arab Emirates at all levels. After his arrival, President Sisi participated in the quadrilateral talks with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Governor of Dubai Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and King of Bahrain Hamad bin Isa. The talks tackled enhancing joint Arab cooperation over facing the current regional challenges and number of regional issues of common concern and interest. The President also discussed means of boosting bilateral ties with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The two sides tackled the latest regional developments, especially that the current phase requires concrete efforts in order to safeguard the national security and confront attempts to undermine stability in the Arab countries. To shed more light on the present visit to the UAE, we are joined over the phone by Professor of International Affairs, Dr. Mohammed Fahmy. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Fahmy.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Sir, what is the significance of the current visit by President Sisi to the United Arab Emirates and his meetings with the leaders of the United Arab Emirates, the governor of Dubai and the Emir of Bahrain?
It's a very important visit at this juncture, I believe, to renew Egypt's commitment to the peace and security of that region. And I think that was echoed recently by the remarks that were made by the President actually prior to the visit, that Egypt continues its support to its partners in that part of the world.
Yes. Sir, also the talks tackled several topics of common concern. What are the topics heading the talks of the leaders in the capital of the United Arab Emirates?
Well, I think it's a continuation of a number of themes. There's a number of ongoing issues that are relevant and important to both parties, both on their respective regional fronts. In the case of Egypt, of course, the issue of the Ethiopian dam remains to be a critical matter for the Egyptian interests, and Egypt, of course, is keen on utilizing and strengthening the capacity of these Gulf countries in the African Horn.
Yes.
With regard to their relations with the with different African partners, including Ethiopia itself. We know these countries do have also investments actually in Ethiopia. Yes. So it's important here to leverage their presence there, and to ensure that they play some role in pressing the Ethiopian government harder to agree to reaching a legally binding agreement. In the case of the Gulf countries, of course, there's a number of, again, continuing issues, including the relations with Iran.
Yes, indeed.
And of course the conflict in Yemen. That's another one. So there's a number of files on both fronts that require the continued, I would say, commitment of both parties to the best interests of the other side.
Yes. Sir, also topping the talks is the issue of the security of the Gulf, which the President asserted many times is a part and parcel of the Egyptian national security. To what extent that issue would be tackled during the talks in the visit?
I think over the past few months, we have seen, maybe actually weeks, we are seeing an increasing sense of rapprochement with, especially between Saudi Arabia and Iran. There's an ongoing set of talks and negotiations and so forth. And, it's really important because, for countries like UAE and Bahrain, maybe the picture is not that clear. Maybe they don't have this the same level of political or military power that Saudi Arabia has. So it's important to reassure these maybe smaller partners that Egypt is also committed to their best interests, and that it is still supporting them also. I mean,
Yes.
and again, it's not far at all from their borders, the conflict in Yemen, which also affects their peace and security, and which is, as we all know, is also anchored by Iran with its allies, represented by the Houthis there.
Yes, indeed.
So it's really important again for each to be present continuously, and not just in terms of statements or announcements. It's important for the country to be present there and to reassure this kind of commitment continuously.
Yes. Sir, indeed, the issue of the Houthis topped the agenda of the talks. To what extent we can find here a unified Arab action toward these very alarming challenges and threats to the region?
The question of unified Arab action is a very difficult one at this stage, because we see, unfortunately, an ongoing sense of rift between different Arab countries. I mean, the more unity there is, the less likely it will be for such conflicts to erupt or to at least keep on being propagated and protracted.
Indeed.
So, yes, as we've seen first, more recently in the case of the Qatari-Saudi reconciliation, it definitely it helped a lot in reducing the tension in the region. So in the case of Yemen, I think it's only affected by what's happening outside Yemen.
No.
So if there's this willingness and ability on the part of the key players in the Arab region to reach this level of reconciliation, also with the Yemeni file, it's only likely to be reduced, but only when this happens, only when this kind of reconciliation takes place.
Indeed. Dr. Mohammed Fahmy, Professor of International Affairs, many thanks for your precious input. Moving on with the Panorama News, where Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli witnessed the inauguration of the 53rd edition of the Cairo International Book Fair. The Prime Minister was accompanied by Minister of Culture Ines Abdeldaim and a number of high-level officials, Algerian Culture Minister and a number of ambassadors, as well as media figures. The book New Fair edition, under the slogan of Egypt's identity, is held from the 26th of January till the 7th of February under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry discussed during a phone call with his French counterpart Jean-Yves Le Drian several regional issues, especially the situations in Lebanon and the Libyan crisis development. Shoukry stressed the importance of holding the Libyan parliament and presidential elections simultaneously and ending the external interferences, as well as expulsion of mercenaries and all foreign forces in a specific timetable. During the call, they discussed the cooperation in the field of climate change, as Shoukry affirmed that Egypt will execute its commitments during the climate summit hosted by Egypt this year. On the other hand, Shoukry stressed Egypt's keenness on offering all the support for Sudan, as well as promoting the United Nations initiative for solving the crisis there. In his meeting with David Starfield, U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, the top diplomat asserted the significance of resuming the negotiations of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and that in light of the nearest time, agreements and meetings to reach a balanced, fair and legal abiding agreement that considers the three countries' interests, along with the presidential statement issued by the National Security in September. Chairman of Akhbar al-Yom institution, journalist Yasser Rizq, passed away on early morning Wednesday at the age of 57. Rizq suffered a heart attack and was transported to hospital, where he died as he arrived. The Armed Forces leadership mourned the death of Rizq, who is considered one of the journalism leaders in Egypt, and expressed condolences to his family. Meanwhile, the National Media Authority, headed by Hussein Zain, also mourned late Yasser Rizq and praised his sacrifices for the sake of the country and his participation to develop the journalism work during his presidency of the radio and television magazine. In its daily coronavirus report, the Ministry of Health reported 1,809 new cases. The ministry also reported that 35 deaths related to COVID-19 complications were recorded in the past 24 hours nationwide. The statement added that 1,783 patients have been discharged from recovering from virus. bringing the total number of those who recovered to 347,557 cases.